Good afternoon. Welcome to Deadly Days Tales of Dark Fantasy. I'm continuing with Chapter 4 of the Anarchist Knight's Apprentice. Anarchist Knight Apprentice. Chapter 4, Echoes of the Past. This is a book that I've recently rewritten in preparation for a trilogy. So I'm working on the second book right now. And I thought it would be kind of fun just to share what I have. I don't have this available for purchase at this time, but I'm planning to get around to it as soon as I can. If you're interested in supporting me on this project or any other projects, share with others, or consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/anarchistbanjo. Different ways of just showing your support. I put a lot of time and effort and resources into my book projects, and every little bit is appreciated. So anyway, Chapter 4, Echoes of the Past. The smell of burning incense and the glow of burning candles was completely unexpected. A dark shag carpet muffled his steps, and he sneezed involuntarily as he stirred up some dust. Antiquities and Curiosities was not a normal shop in any sense of the term. He gazed around in awe. It was like being in a museum. The shop was large and divided into several sections, each section set up and displayed according to a historical time period. He had been expecting to see odds and ends of junk that cluttered so many antique shops. Instead, each section was divided not by year but by century. There were complete room-like displays of furniture, clothing, weaponry, art, games, toys, reading materials, and more. Entering into a section was like stepping into a different world. He stepped into a display about prehistoric cavemen. There was a replica of a cave painting on a rock. The painting and rock looked like they had been hewn out of the back of a cave somewhere. There was a clay bowl and goblet. 3 flint knives looked sharp and fairly unused. A hand axe had been used to cut chips out of a log lying in the middle of the display. Admiring it, he picked the axe up, hefted it, and gave a couple practice swings. There was a primitive energy and vitality about each item that made him instinctively want to pick it up and start using it. He just knew these items had been made to be used. As he moved through the displays, a clock on the wall began ticking erratically, its hands blurring between moments. The air thickened with a temporal tug, and the hand axe flickered, as if caught between eras. Nearby, a small etched crystal in the display pulsed faintly, its glow hinting at something ancient and alive. He felt a shiver. Could this shop hold secrets of time itself? A female figure was dressed attractively in furs and armed with a bow and quiver of handmade arrows. There was a small pack on her back and a blanket robe of rabbit fur lying on the ground beside her. She had a necklace of brightly colored bird feathers around her neck, and there were price tags on each item. His jaw dropped in disbelief as he looked at a few of the price tags. There was a small fortune in this one display alone. He realized the shop must deal in specialty replicas, perhaps theater props. Each item was extremely well made and looked real and functional. The clothing, furniture, weapons, and even the leather shoes were all obviously handcrafted. Moving to other displays, he could see each item of clothing was crudely woven in the old manner, hand-stitched, and buttons were handmade. He would have believed he was in some type of museum, but no museum carried items in such perfect state of repair and like new condition. He wandered for an hour, looking at various displays and getting an increasingly troubled feeling that something wasn't right. He could believe one or two displays of meticulous craftsmanship and diversity. There were reconstructionists that studied the old ways of ancient civilizations and tried duplicating them, but this was different. It was as if someone had stepped back into time and brought back these items for sale in this curious shop. Touching a flint knife, he saw a flash, a warrior wielding it in a shadowed battle, his parents' faces flickering beside a crystalline portal. The vision faded, leaving a hum in the air, the wild whispering of past lives. That was absurd, of course, but the feeling of unease was growing more uncomfortable inside him. He couldn't shake the feeling that these items were real, and that was not possible. He felt a chill go up his spine. These items shouldn't exist, and this store shouldn't exist. The knowledge and ability to create these things had vanished long ago. No people living today had the knowledge to make these things that were so exquisitely crafted. This was not an ordinary shop. Dealing in replicas of this quality had to be very expensive, and these items very hard to come by. Why would any person in today's world want to use these old-fashioned things or buy them? The only reason Tobal could think of was for theatrical props. In a flash of insight, he wondered if Tavistock Educational had purchased theatrical costumes from this place to use at the Halloween dance. He winced and rapidly brought his mind back to the present. He sneezed again, and a blonde girl about 2 years younger than Tobal came around the corner with a smile, wearing a spring-colored dress. She was 5 feet 4 inches tall and pretty in a plain sort of way. Her eyes were warm, bright blue and danced with humor. "Bless you," she said brightly with a smile. "I thought I heard someone. May I help you?" "Oh!" Her hand went to her face and covered her mouth in a startled manner. She was blushing furiously in an embarrassment and backing away. "I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I was just startled." He touched his face, relaxed, and tried to grin. "That's all right." The awkward moment passed. "How can I help you?" she asked again, this time a little nervously. Tobal eyed her. She was too young to know about the medallion and the faded letter. She was younger than he was. Still, his instructions had been to take them to this shop. Slowly and uncertainly, he took the medallion off over his head and handed it to the girl. "I would like to know what you can tell me about this medallion and how old it is," he said. She looked at it. Her eyes widened and her face turned pale. She looked sharply and asked in a snappy voice, "Are you trying to sell this?" "No, I'm not. I'm trying to find information about it. It belonged to my parents." "I have to get Father. I can't talk to you about this," she said quickly. "Make yourself at home and look around the shop a little bit more. I'll be right back with Father in a few minutes." Tobal watched as she stepped through a curtain behind the main counter. He heard her running upstairs into the living quarters. Suddenly he wished that he had taken the medallion back before she had left. He fought down a rising panic. She seemed honest enough, and it would be all right. Still, he knew he should have never let it out of his hands. He didn't know her or anyone else in this town. If anything happened, it would be her word against his, and unlikely that anyone would believe him. Trying to take his mind off the medallion, Tobal wandered around other areas of the shop, looking with renewed amazement at finely crafted armor, ornate weapons, muskets, and pistols. Some of the metal still had hammer marks from when it was forged and beaten into shape. Leather boots and woven tapestries competed with rich clothing hand-sewn from the finest silks. Oil lamps lit ornate desks covered with handwritten books and crude scientific instruments whose purpose he couldn't even begin to fathom. Close examination of some items showed that not all of them were new. Some of the items were not only real and functional, but had also been used. Some of the armor and weapons were sweat-stained and scarred or repaired. He studied a Roman helmet and noticed the leather lining was soft and pliable with sweat stains on it as if it had been used recently. The bronze buckles were highly polished. When he touched these used items, he felt memories entering into his mind. Perhaps he was reminded of past lives when he had known, worn, and used items such as these. Perhaps that was why they stirred such deep and powerful emotions within him, and why they felt so comfortable in his hands. He heard someone coming slowly down the stairs and headed back to the counter. The tread sounded slower and heavier, and he knew it was not the girl returning. Whoever it was walked with a pronounced limp. The curtains parted, and a very tall, distinguished-looking gentleman with old-fashioned spectacles and long gray hair pulled back in a ponytail entered the room. Tobal stared at the spectacles. They were the kind of thing no one wore anymore. Corrective surgery had long made any type of eyeglasses a thing of the past. He wondered at the odd affectation and suppressed a smile. Anyone that owned a shop like this would have to be unusual. The man was holding Tobal's medallion and staring at it with a peculiar look in his eye. Almost lovingly, the old man's fingers traced the outer circle and the two figures. Tobal blurted out, his voice unsteady. "Last night, Lucas and Carl appeared, time knights. They said my parents built a Gaia time portal, that they're alive, imprisoned. Harry says they drowned." Adam listened silently, his expression unreadable, fingers pausing on the medallion. He looked at Tobal and said softly, "Do you have anything else?" Tobal pulled the faded letter out of his pocket and handed it over. The old man's face paled as he looked at the broken wax seal. He carefully took the letter out of the envelope and began to read. When he was done, he looked at Tobal with a new expression on his face. There was steely determination and something that looked suspiciously like newly forming tears. The old man asked solemnly, "Do you claim the right of blood?" Not knowing what to say, Tobal just nodded. "Yes, I do." The old man smiled widely and, stepping around the corner, embraced Tobal in a warm hug. "Then welcome, son, welcome. You've come home at last." The old man's name was Adam Gardner, and his daughter was named Sarah. She was an only child. Her mother had died when she was an infant. She was only 1 year younger than Tobal. The way she pinned her hair into twin ponytails made her look younger. Adam called Sarah down to mind the shop, while the two of them went upstairs to talk. Tobal related what he knew while the old man sat quietly and listened. He was particularly interested that Tobal's Uncle Harry had been reactivated, and there was no interest in his parents' research. He was not surprised Uncle Harry had discouraged Tobal from coming to Old Seattle. He was right, Adam told him. Most of the people that knew your father and mother are dead. I think your uncle and I might be the only ones left, and I never met your uncle. Your parents spoke well of him, though, and that was always good enough for me. It was a foolish idea coming here, but I'm glad you did. I owe your mother and father a lot, he continued. There are not many around anymore that still remember what really happened. Hell, he sighed. I don't know what really happened, and I was there. It was during the failure of Phase 2 that I started working with Ron and Rachel. They were brilliant scientists and very much in love. He glanced at Tobal and his eyes softened. I'm sorry you never got to know them. I remember how excited they were when you were born. They brought you straight to the village from the hospital and showed you off. They took you everywhere they could. When they went on missions, my wife Linda or I would babysit you and some of the other children. Tobal's head was spinning and he felt completely lost. Wait, please, he interrupted. What do you mean Phase 2? I thought there was only one project. And why were there other children around if it was dangerous? Adam sighed heavily and shifted his chair. There were at least 3 different programs I knew about and more that I didn't. Most of them were heavily classified Federation research. The overall focus of your parents' research involved matter transmission from one point to another, harnessing crystals that tap into Gaia's magnetic fields to produce free energy. But that was done years ago, Tobal said. At least I think it was. It has been done with solid crystalline objects, but never with organic tissue or living things. Impurities within the cellular structure caused the collapse of the cell tissue under the stress of intense magnetic field energies. Your parents were trying to find ways to purify the human body enough so it would transform into pure energy and then back into the flesh again. Is that possible? Tobal asked. Yes, Adam replied quietly. Your parents did this many times. I've done it as well. The entire sanctuary project was designed as the first round of purification needed to produce this effect in humans, and was known as Phase 1. Its objective was to produce general spiritual, mental, emotional, physical health, self-esteem, and competence by naturally strengthening the magnetic fields within the human body. It was very successful in producing sweeping changes physically, mentally, and emotionally in a positive manner. It was so successful, the city-state of Heliopolis was forced to assume a closed or forbidden status under Federation supervision. Graduates of Phase 1 were vastly superior to their peers in normal Federation society. Given a chance, they would outperform or outcompete others while remaining healthy and highly individualized. The main drawback from the Federation's view was that graduates were too independent. They didn't like taking orders from people they didn't know or respect. Phase 2 tried to further purify the human body through mechanical means using high-strength pulsating magnetic fields similar to how solid objects have been treated and transported in the past. This is the project that failed. Scientists exposed to these raw magnetic field energies began to experience bizarre side effects and deformities as their human genetic structure mutated. Your parents alone seemed immune to these hazards that were killing others. That was when I became involved. I was going through Phase 1. A handful of us met secretly with your parents and studied natural shamanistic ways of purifying and energizing the human body. Your mother was pregnant with you and didn't want to do anything that might cause harm to her unborn infant. She was already afraid she might have exposed you to harmful influences and genetic mutations. He peered at Tobal with keen interest through his spectacles. You seem to be healthy and normal, though. He continued. Howling Wolf was a local Native American shaman that had mastered the practice of bilocation, being in 2 places at once. He developed this ability through natural means. He was never a part of the official program, and the Federation never knew about him. Your parents met him accidentally one day in the mountains. He gave your mother herbs he said would help her pregnancy. Later, they learned he was able to instantly teleport himself from one place to another. This was what your parents were interested in and didn't involve sophisticated technology. They became his students. Training started out as a form of mental projection, like remote viewing, but deepened into the transport of the entire physical body. Howling Wolf was a strong influence and convinced your parents that you would be born healthy and that learning this bilocation ability would not be harmful to you. Your parents convinced Howling Wolf to teach a small group of us, and we met in secret. As our shamanism training progressed, it became clear that spirit travel and bilocation could be achieved naturally and safely, without the mutagenic hazards of high-strength magnetic fields and superconductors. We didn't need the money or the machines the Federation supplied. Even more important, we didn't need the strict military supervision and control. Your parents researched the effect of Howling Wolf's training on the human body and found ways to measure scientifically what was really happening. They were able to duplicate his training and developed other methods that combined science and shamanism. They created a teleportation device capable of transporting Phase 1 graduates from one transmitter to another and back. That project was called Phase 3. Phase 1 graduates had no problems going through the matter transmitter, even though non-graduates could not. My theory is Phase 1 training integrated body, mind, and spirit in a way that unified the entire personality. Howling Wolf taught that these mysteries and natural techniques have always been known to a small group of individuals throughout history. These secrets have been taught in secret mystery schools and handed down individually through oral traditions. This training involved the development of the non-physical body, aura, or soul as it is sometimes called. It was the development of this non-physical body that energized and harmonized with the physical body in a way that allowed the physical body to transform into pure energy and back again without damage to the individual cells. Adam glanced at Tobal before continuing. Howling Wolf told us in ancient times this was called becoming immortal or godlike. Each culture had its own name for it. The Taoists called it developing the immortal physical body. Jesus used this technique or something similar when he appeared in a closed room full of disciples after his supposed death. Thomas the doubter did not believe until he felt the holes of the nails in Jesus' hands and feet. The ancient Greeks spoke of heroes and heroines that became immortal. He paused and took a sip of brandy before continuing. The holy men and women of the earth's religions knew these techniques and passed them on in secret to a select few. The gods and goddesses of all religions were once human. After they learned these techniques, they became divine and transcended normal human life. Later, they were worshipped as gods and goddesses. Can you imagine the military application of such superhuman abilities? Imagine spies and assassins that can't be stopped or caught. Do you understand what I'm saying? Phase 3 was insignificant compared to Howling Wolf's bilocation process. Your parents refused to cooperate any longer with the harmful studies because of the mutagenic effect it had on the human DNA. Several volunteers had already died horrible deaths. The Federation found out about our secret group and panicked. They sent in special forces and massacred our entire village, hoping to kill every one of us. Adam's throat caught and his voice faltered. Many innocent lives were lost, not just those in the sanctuary program. My wife was murdered and my two older children. Howlin' Wolf's entire family was living in the village and they were murdered too. Only two of his grandchildren survived, and that was because they were with us. We were at a secret meeting and had taken you, Sarah, and Howlin' Wolf's two grandchildren with us. I was taking care of the four of you. The rest were in a meeting when it happened. When we came back, his voice faltered and there were tears in his eyes. When we came back, they were all dead. Your father and mother went to find your uncle. He was the Federation officer in charge of Phase 3. They never came back. They took you with them. Howlin' Wolf's son and daughter-in-law were hunted down and executed. The rest of us vanished. Howlin' Wolf took his remaining grandchildren and I took Sarah. She doesn't know she had two older brothers. We went back in secret and buried our loved ones. Several times they almost caught us, but we slipped through them like ghosts. He laughed hollowly and without humor. That's what we were. Ghosts burying ghosts. His fist clenched. That's what they were too if we ever caught them. We wanted to stay, but the children were not safe and needed protection. We waited for word from your parents, but no word ever came. Howlin' Wolf was going to keep an eye on things and keep our secret meeting place from being discovered. We knew how to contact each other in an emergency. I was going to get money for the supplies to rescue your parents if they were still alive. That's all I know, he said wearily, sitting back in his chair. Howlin' Wolf never contacted me. They must have hunted him down and killed him too. I don't see how he could have survived. Adam peered at Tobal over his spectacles. Now you tell me there is renewed interest in your parents' research. I've thought about this for a long time. I've always wanted Sarah to go through the sanctuary program. I'm getting too old to train her myself. Knowing that you will be there makes me feel better about Sarah going. I will send her next fall after the tourist season. Can you bilocate? Tobal asked in awe. The old man nodded gruffly. Howlin' Wolf and your parents taught me. Can Sarah? Adam sighed and took another sip of brandy. No, she can't. She needs to go through the sanctuary program first for the preliminary training. After that, I can train her. Will you train me? Tobal asked hopefully. Adam took a long time before answering. He bent forward and his steely eyes looked straight into Tobal's soul. Get through the sanctuary program first and then ask me. If it is still what you want, then I will train you. I owe your parents that much. Make sure Sarah gets through her training too. Tobal was overwhelmed by the information and needed some time to think. He believed the old man, but he also felt the old man was not telling the entire story. He excused himself and said he needed to go for a walk down by the park and clear his head. As he stepped outside, he noticed a shadow flitting near the shop, echoing the figure from that snowy night, stirring a flicker of unease. The sun was high and it was almost noon when Sarah came to get him for lunch. She was shy and awkward in social situations. Tobal guessed she didn't get around much and was surprised she was being homeschooled. To be homeschooled in today's high-tech society was unheard of. As they walked back to the shop for lunch, he wondered how good her education really was. Sarah and Tobal spent a lot of time together and became good friends. She was interesting to talk with and certainly knew far more about history than he did. The days crept by and early March brought heavy snows that made a mess in Old Seattle, where traffic was foot traffic. Sidewalks were kept shoveled clear, but the streets were left to melt on their own. Getting around on foot made travel hazardous. They spent most of the time inside the store or visiting other shops. One day they went to New Seattle. It was like any modern city-state he had ever visited. It was lacking in personality and created to satisfy its population with passive pleasures like virtual gaming tournaments and interactive learning terminals linking people from all across the globe. Like many city-states, it followed the European pattern of stacking people like sardines in limited living quarters. That was balanced with large parks, recreational areas, and gardens where a person could spend time alone in nature without ever leaving the city itself. It was old Seattle that was a breath of fresh air to Tobal, with its strange shops and residents. The entire area was filled with people that dared to be different and creative. Each person was living their own self-created reality and prospered or reduced to poverty on the merits of their vision and efforts. Old Seattle survived on the seasonal tourist trade. Still, it was surprising how much business it drew, even in the slower months of winter and late spring. There was a darker side to the city as well, and they tried to steer clear of it. Drugs and prostitution had found a home in the old city, along with other illegal activities not allowed within New Seattle. There were dangers that beckoned with shadowy fingers. There was an area of human predators, and there was little protection from the law. Tobal realized why there were iron bars and heavy reinforced doors on most of the homes and shops. The freedom of the old city came at a heavy price. That price was no medical or police service. It simply was not available, even though one could go through the gate into New Seattle and have instant service. New Seattle did not want people living in Old Seattle, and it did not support its occupants. The local community united together to provide emergency service and transportation when needed. They looked out for each other through a neighborhood watch program. Sarah and Adam lived in a fairly safe and respectable neighborhood, but even she was concerned when they were followed home one snowy night by a shadowy figure they couldn't quite make out. They never did know if it was a friend making sure they got home safely or a predator. The mysterious figure vanished into the snowy night when they reached the shop entrance. Tobal spent a lot of time talking with Adam. One afternoon, he was helping set up a new display in the shop. "Where does all this stuff come from?" he asked. "How do you find things like this?" The old man answered evasively. "They're just handcrafted items here on consignment. I know the people that make them and have an exclusive trade agreement with them. While I get a commission on each sale, I don't really know the history of each piece." He eyed Tobal speculatively and continued. "Several times a year I take some time off to restock my supply. When I'm gone, Sarah takes care of the shop for me. That's why I'm going to miss her so much when she leaves." "Have you ever heard of Tavistock Educational?" Yes, I think I have. Why?" Adam asked. "That's my old school. I graduated from there." He paused and corrected himself. "I mean, this spring is my graduation, but I graduated early. Anyway," he flushed, "last Halloween we had a costume ball, and I was wondering if our theatrical department got its costumes from you. This shop reminds me of the costumes we were wearing." Adam Gardner eyed him shrewdly. "Your uncle must do pretty well to send you to an exclusive school like Tavistock Educational. It's a very hard school to get into, and I've never heard of anyone graduating early from it. I've heard it's real high society, not like your parents at all." Tobal persisted. "Did the school get the costumes from you?" Adam relented and said mysteriously, Yes, they have an account with me and are one of my good customers. There are not many places that can afford high-quality reproductions. I move in some pretty elite circles myself." Then he changed the subject. Adam also proved evasive about the medallion, especially when Tobal told him that he had seen the same image as a tattoo on Uncle Harry's chest. Adam said there were some things he couldn't talk about. Maybe later, after Tobal completed the sanctuary program, they could sit down and talk. It was just not the right time. There were some things that could only be told after he received the proper training. "There are some things just too dangerous to talk about right now," he told Tobal. "I haven't been in Heliopolis in over 15 years and they think I'm dead. I want them to keep thinking I'm dead. I don't know if things have changed, and I don't want to endanger Sarah when she is taking the Phase 1 training this fall." "Tell you what," he said, "you come back here with Sarah after you've completed the sanctuary program, and I'll tell you everything you want to know." He looked hard at Tobal. "Will you trust me on that?" Tobal didn't have much choice. "I guess I will have to," he muttered dryly. Soon after that, the old man made arrangements for transportation to the closed city-state of Heliopolis. It was about 80 miles from the coast into the Cascades. Heliopolis lay in a sheltered valley between mountains and was hidden by hardwood trees, ringed with dense pine forests and shaded by snow-capped mountains. Tobal and Adam had one last talk in private before he left. Adam told him more about Heliopolis. It did not follow the accepted rules of the Federation. Tobal was reminded he would not have the same civil rights he enjoyed now. Heliopolis was a separate sovereign nation. He needed to be very careful. Tobal was getting a little worried until Adam reminded him that Sarah would be coming next fall, and she would need his friendship and help. It was a high honor to apply for sanctuary. No one was turned away, but it was so secret, few people knew they could apply. It was limited to word of mouth and generations of family members that had already gone through the training themselves. Adam had been a citizen of Heliopolis before Tobal's parents changed everything with the research. He remembered how Heliopolis had been before it became a closed city-state. His wife and 2 sons were buried back there, and someday he wanted to go back and visit their graves. He was bitter about it because under the current political conditions, he would never be able to go back. His older citizenship was no longer recognized, and his life would be in danger if he tried. Sarah's life would be in danger if they knew who she really was. She would come under a false identity. He hoped Sarah would be able to visit her mother's grave. She didn't know about her 2 older brothers, and he needed to talk to her about them before she left. His voice faltered as he was telling Tobal these things. Tobal knew it would be very hard for Adam to share these things with Sarah. There was not much else to say, and Tobal silently gave the old man a hug. Then they went downstairs to find Sarah. As he descended, the medallion's pulse seemed to align with a faint hum from Gaia's crystal energy, a whisper of the journey ahead. It was almost time to go. Later that evening, as they sat by the shop's hearth, Tobal turned to Adam. "About Lucas and Carla, what do you know of them? The time nights. They mentioned a time hub, something my parents worked on. Is that tied to this place?" Adam's gaze darkened, sipping his brandy. "I've heard whispers of time nights, guardians of temporal rifts. Your family spoke of a hub, a portal they built with Howling Wolf's guidance, here in old Seattle, hidden in the artifacts. A friend of mine, a knight, vanished during the massacre. I helped shield it, but the Federation's attack disrupted it. I thought it lost. If they're alive, it might still pulse beneath us. Tread carefully. Harry's recall could mean they're hunting it again. That's the end of this chapter. Till next week. Thank you.